So, Gamers Nexus, one of the biggest and most well-respected YouTube channels and groups, has recently done a video doing, I guess, a secret shopper or something of the Starforge PC. My company. Here we go.
Okay, so now we are going... I can loosen it. Cabling is super clean on this. They have the tape on the SSD, on the thermal pad. But overall, it's pretty good.
Okay.
We secretly bought a
All right, bro, because for a second I was stressed. The first fucking clip. Overall, it's pretty good. All right. I'm not stressing out yet.
Starforge gaming PC to review, and it was actually kind of difficult to covertly buy this one. We had to buy it through a secret agent in another state. But of course, this was all to ensure we got the full customer experience.
Good.
And having it not even in the same state really makes sure.
Bro, like, their cabling and shit is fucking nuts. Like, I didn't even know you could do this with a PC. Like, because you look at my PCs that I've made, bro, that's just like it looks like a snake nest.
Of that. This system has an i5-13600K and an RTX 4070 in it, and is currently about $1,950 on their website.
This game, by the way, or sorry, this PC, by the way, it can run World of Warcraft Classic. So if you need to play Wrath of the Lich King, this one will let you do it, or Season of Discovery.
Got our system and started testing at the beginning of November. This review will go through acoustics in our hemi-anechoic chamber. We'll also talk about thermals in the lab and the usual packaging, BIOS, and software inspections. And because we expect that some of the viewers to this video, since it's a pre-built review of Starforge, will be maybe new to the channel, each of these sections will have a little bit of an explainer on methodology as well.
Okay, let's
get started. Before that, this video is brought to you by us and our new limited disappointment PC t-shirts on store.gamersnexus.net. These shirts are the best way to support us and our testing and educational content while getting a fun way to recap another year of chaos in the PC hardware and gaming industries. The front includes an exploded diagram of a RAM stick, and the back has a spinal representation of memory architecture right down the middle. We launched these in both cotton and charcoal heather, and for the first time in years, we were able to get the price down as low as $20 for cotton despite rising costs. These shirts use comfortable materials and water-based, environmentally friendly inks while offering a fun band-style tour date list with 2023's releases and events. Grab one on store.gamersnexus.net to support us while getting a unique, limited shirt in return. So this is the system we're reviewing. They call it the Horizon 2 Ultra. The SKU gets updated every now and then. So, for example, we noticed that Starforge sometimes changes the liquid cooler in it. But overall, it's mostly the same computer. Even when there's small revisions, we assume it's just due to parts availability. So, we're reviewing the Horizon 2 Ultra.
Seeing that fan reminded me of something. Remember how I took my car to get it fixed the other day? Well, it's not fixed. The same problem is still happening, and it died in the McDonald's drive-thru last night. Completely random, has nothing to do with the video. But yeah, and you know what's really funny about that is tomorrow's Saturday, and I'm not going to be able to get it fixed probably until Wednesday. Isn't that awesome? Time to get a new car? I will be getting a new car very soon.
Then, and as some brief backstory, Starforge was founded by former Artesian Builds members. We did that whole story quite a while ago. So some of the former employees who escaped from the collapse of Artesian Builds went to form two different companies. There's Phoenix PCs, which is the smaller of the two. It's run out of a house. Then there's Starforge, which is a whole big operation now. Starforge found its funding from big-name streamers and is owned by OTK, which is a streamer group. This consists of familiar names like Asmongold, SodaPop, and others. Now, to be clear, although these are the others of the company,
thank God, bro. Who are those others?
Starforge is effectively its own entity. It has its own C-suite, it has its own builders, and so it's not like the streamers are in there building the computers.
I think I need to unscrew... Is this the one? I think I need to take off the feet. No? Nah, bro, there's no way. Just slide the glass up, but it doesn't. I gotta figure this out. CEO, by the way. I'm literally texting the people at Starforge in this video. Shut up! How does I take the top off? Am I bleeding? No, not yet.
Probably for the best. Company easily is doing millions.
Hey guys, I've made my own PC. I've made multiples of my PCs. You can see all of my PCs over on the PC graveyard on the other side of my room. That's where I put all my PCs. They're footrests now. Yeah, it's a footrest. That's the PC I made.
in revenue per year now, many millions, and it like the best. Company easily is doing millions in revenue per year now, many millions, and it likely has outpaced even Artesian, which itself was surprisingly successful before its nosedive. If you don't remember that story, here's a quick reminder.
And there's the re-roll.
And that should pretty much recap it. That's old news, though. The company is now successful enough that we think it should be held to the same standard as its peers in the space. We've reviewed a lot of SIs now, and this is going to be another one of them.
That's true, right? I mean, because like the thing is, if we can't meet the same quality standards that other people can, we're never going to be able to evolve beyond just selling to like our fan base. Which is like that's not a good thing, right? Like why would we want to do that? Like you want to be able to continue growing. So this is a good thing.
For us to review in depth. So one quick note as well. We recently visited StarForge. They had no idea that we'd already bought a system. They didn't know we were working on a review. They had.
Yep, there it is. They took down the Vaporeon. Oh god.
No idea that we'd already bought a system. They didn't know we were working on a review. We didn't tell them, and that's a separate video. It's gonna be coming out in the next few weeks.
I'll probably do. Oh god, I'll probably do a video showing like a lot of the upgrades and updates to the warehouse at some point soon. Because like the last video I did, it was like pretty casual and relaxed. Like I'll just tell you guys, StarForge is doing really well. So things are a lot. Going along a lot. Things have evolved quite a bit.
Put on my shoes for this. You know, just in case. We're gonna cut this down.
Okay, so now we are going. Now we're gonna test the assembly quality of this. We're gonna do a teardown. All the testing has been completed at this point. So thermals, acoustic, everything else, which is because we're gonna take this apart. And we don't want to influence the data or the results by doing that. So it's done at the end of the process, after all the testing. So as you can see, number one thing is this panel. Now that is not damage. No, this is just a feature. Call it a percussive RGB front panel. It's a new thing.
Oh god. Okay.
So other than the deep cool.
Jesus, bro. I wonder what we can do to address that. If that's even something that needs to be addressed, I don't know.
Panel
I'd have to touch it and see it myself.
Is extremely well cable managed.
I don't have that one, so
we'll spend some time on in a moment. So StarForge did well with that aspect of things. So using a deep cool black case fan for the back. These are cheap, basic, very simple fans. This is like kind of dollar bin supplier type of fan. In the front, they're using 3 RGB fans. So these are 12 volt. 0.12 amp fans. The blade spacing is very far apart, and so to try and compensate for the lack of blade count, they're actually steepening the angle to go at a more aggressive angle of attack into it, which has some acoustic trade-offs that we show later.
He's talking about the fans being like this and not this, right? Like, yeah, okay. That makes sense.
Cable combs on it. That's a nice touch.
It's something, to be honest, I had never even thought about it, but like the moment that I hear it, it immediately makes sense. Sure.
A little bit more expensive. Certainly that's past the consumer, but as far as things that an SI can do to try and provide additional value, that is one of the better ones. Backside here, so cabling is super clean on this, very methodical.
I can't believe, like, whenever I watch Ariel do the cabling, I didn't even know that shit was possible. Like, I've never seen a well-cabled PC in my life.
Like until the cable routing,
I just always got my own, you know?
Employed over the RGB connectors, which we think is a good thing. Let's look at the internals now. So if we rotate this around, I'm going to lower this table. Been a little while since I've used these buttons.
Ooh.
That was the wrong direction. The Deep Cool cooler is obviously dead center, except they've got the StarForge logo on it. Internally, got an MSI motherboard. We'll look closer at that in a second. We'll be talking about BIOS later in this video as well, since I've already inspected all that before the teardown. RAM, they're using 2 sticks, and this is important. They got them in the right slots. Let's just look for...
Yeah, I think that they're supposed to be in slot 1 and 3 or 2 and 4, right? That's my understanding of RAM. They're not supposed to be next to each other. Yeah. 2 and 4, yeah.
glue. Oh, no glue there. Okay, well, that's good. We're doing better than Walmart.
Ooh.
There's a blob of hot glue in there.
What?
What the? Okay, so for fan configuration, they're going brute force intake at the front here, so it's 3 intake fans. Probably some of the worst possible perforation you can have on a panel. There is absolutely no ventilation through this panel. The reason it can still breathe is because of this side intake.
Yeah.
And there's not a ton of room in there. It's like maybe about half an inch, 3/4 of an inch between the front panel and the actual front of the mount for the fans.
Okay.
But that's where the air is coming from on this. This is how you rate front panel ventilation. Is porosity is phenomenally low. It's like actually impressive how low it is. But Starforge is able to brute force a lot of this just because the count of fans, plus the holes in the side, plus they're using an AIO for a 13600K, which is a relatively low heat producing component. Generally speaking, you'd be fine with something like a Peerless Assassin, but in a pre-built, this can make sense for other reasons, like not levering the CPU and the socket.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. Like, is that something? Because like, obviously, he's saying it works, right? But I wonder if this is because like it's hard for me to know like which things are things that are worth like addressing and which things are okay but not perfect, right? So that's yeah, I'm kind of thinking about like, yeah, which one is this? This will probably be a conversation. Okay. Fans are fine. Yeah, at least I mean I know my fans are fine, but I also have a different type of PC. And it's also just that's also the one they made for me, and so it's a different thing.
Shipping. And one of the things I like to do in these teardowns is
check the motherboard screws.
First, just check for if any screws are loose before I begin taking them out. And that one's actually, that's a little loose right there.
It's got 8 screws,
and
right?
This is really only to see if they're really tightening everything properly. So
4? Really?
Look at the thermal paste application.
I remember there were more.
In terms of thermal paste, they have relatively full coverage of the whole IHS, and that includes past this silk screen from
so one of the screws was loose, okay.
Application, whether that's Starforge or Deep Cool. Contact is overall about as even as you can ask for on an Intel CPU. So
all right, fuck yeah, great. I am the kind of person that is afraid to put thermal paste on things. I will be honest, the most I ever did was install a liquid cooling system. I think that was it. I think maybe I did thermal paste one time on that. I don't remember. It was like 2014. Maybe 16, 15, something like that.
I was just asking Mike to look at the screws and tell me what he thinks, and I pointed at this one. I noticed I can
Yeah, this one's definitely not screwed in all the way.
So now we're up to 2 screws that were not tight enough. Oh, and this is actually super loose as well.
Okay.
That one I probably could move. That one I can move by hand as well. So that would be probably the #1 place for Starforge to work on this a little bit is attention to detail on the torque, but also in this case, trying to actually get it to leverage both sides of that channel. And this one is also loose. You can see it's not a whole lot there. So the rest seem okay.
Okay.
I require more appendages.
Yeah, that's because I think to myself, like, can something like that happen during shipping? And if it can, what can we do to make that not happen as often? Also, like, I'm actually very curious. Yeah, torque limiting screwdrivers would fix that. This is completely normal. After transporting, it should be done anyway. Factory worker myself, I wouldn't hold against anyone it's on the line. It's a Monday or Friday job. Well, it's very hard to say. I mean, this is always like, this is what my perspective is with a lot of this stuff. Is that, and I remember, I think Linus said that, and like this has been a very common opinion that people have about pre-built PCs, is that a lot of times they do get damaged or something like that in transit. Like this is just a reality. It's the same as anything gets damaged. But like that will happen, but how can we make that happen less? And like that's why, for example, if you saw at the beginning of the video, that's why we have the padding around like the different motherboard and everything. Because I think that ideally, the reason why people buy a pre-built PC is because they don't want to build it themselves. So every single thing that the user has to do outside of just simply turning it on, this is a problem that we are looking to solve. And obviously nothing's going to be perfect. There's never going to be 100% success rate. But like, yeah, I do take this. Like overall so far, I'm not really that stressed, right? It was a few screws problematic and like this case thing. I don't know really what to do about this. But at least there's been nothing that's like crazy fucked up. And I'm glad about that so far. I'm very happy about that. Agree using consistent torque would be helpful. Yeah. There were a couple of other things that like I had thought of. Obviously, I don't really like speaking a lot for the company in terms of like process. But, you know, there were things that I had thought of like, oh, maybe we should try this or try that in order to make sure that like things are done in like a more particular way. Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, look, guys. Gamers Nexus will always find something, though. Well, that's a good thing. Like, it's the same thing with the Linus video. Even with the things that... Like, even with things that we might disagree with or might be something else's fault, like, we still want to know... Like, I think people might not really understand this a lot because I'm very much like, I don't really take a lot of criticism from people, like, on a personal level. Like, if somebody says something or, like, they call me stupid, I just immediately shut it down or tell them shut up. This is different for me because this is an actual product. This is a product, and so it is either good or it is not good. And so I have a very different philosophy with this, if that makes sense. They sell screwdriver for PC building, we let you torque to make sure they're all the same. Yeah.
Can you do that while holding a camera?
Chat thinks to do this personally?
Oh,
no.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's like you pushed 3 in Counter-Strike.
I cannot.
This is exciting footage.
Riveting.
No, it's tape.
Oh.
It's a lot of tape for one. Okay, well, they got 3 wraps on it. Starforge, I've found where you can save some money.
Yeah.
Although it is
using too much tape
for keeping things secure. It's free.
Okay.
All we care about is that it's fully socketed,
Right.
and it is. That wow.
Okay,
Right,
great.
This is actually really. This is really.
That's a big deal, right? Is because making sure that, like, for example, the graphics card and the RAM is actually in, because like you remember with the first Linus video, there was a connector cord that wasn't fully connected that was inside of the PC. And like personally, again, to me, problems that are inside of the PC are much more important to solve versus problems that are outside of the PC, like a screw being loose on the top of the case, right? Because people, again, buy pre-made PCs for the explicit purpose to not have to open them up. So yeah, to me, I'm very happy about that. And like we did have a number of conversations about that afterwards.
I am impressed by the care they put here.
Thank fucking God.
This cable, Sysfan 1,
Yeah.
is routed up under. So someone went through the effort of routing it under rather than going the lazy path, which would be maybe like shoving it in between these two where it would eventually just probably pop out and then down here.
There it
So
is.
that's really well done.
That's
Let's
right.
check every single
All right.
screw.
There we go.
That's loose. That's free spinning right there. So I mean, maybe we're moving a little too quick in the PC building area, assembly line or whatever.
It's another one of these fucking screws.
That's now,
Yeah.
What are we up to, like 3 or something?
So there are screwdrivers that automatically do the same torque. Is that correct? Screwforge. Okay. Yeah, I will look into that tonight.
And the real problem with these when they're interior like this, you know, like check this out. We can spin it with the magnet. So
Oh, it's obviously not screwed in.
see that?
Yeah.
So that needs to be tighter.
Yeah.
And the problem with the interior ones when they're loose like that is if they rattle out over time or gets knocked in shipping or whatever. Just
Well,
the wrong
here's
way.
the reason why it's problematic. So let me explain how it's problematic and what causes this to be an issue for us on a purely functional basis. if we sell a PC to somebody and this screw comes out and it's making noise whenever they move the PC around, the user will think that the PC is broken and they'll send it back to us, costing us money. So this has a direct, it has a direct negative impact on us potentially. Which means that like whenever somebody sends a PC back, usually we send them a PC in the interim, or if for nothing else, we're paying for part of that. We're paying for customer service, etc. Yeah, this is a direct financial impact. So yeah, this is very serious. You can potentially under or over torque a screw. Oh, I understand that. Is the quality of the screw a factor? I'm not sure. I think that for a lot of these screws, they're provided by the people that make this motherboard. Whenever I bought motherboards in the past, the screws have been included with the motherboard.
As soon as that becomes a floating screw in the case, now you have a short waiting to happen, which at the best possible side of things causes a shutdown and the customer's not sure why, but the system's fine. The worst possible side of things, you bridge 12 volts to ground or whatever, and now you have a dead component. Normally, I wouldn't spend that much time talking about that issue, except we've now seen it 3 times.
Yeah, no, that's important. And you guys see my point that I'm making, right? About how something like that extrapolates into us having a direct financial impact from the screws not being done properly. Because, like, again, right? I mean, you think about it as a user, like, how did I know, for example, my car was fucked up the other day? Well, because the serpentine belt was, like, squeaking. So, like, the belt tensioner was, like, not adjusted properly. So, like, I don't really know that, but what I do know is that it's making a noise that it shouldn't make.
And actually, we did this off camera. We had moved the power supply previously to check on something, and we resecured it. But I was the one who took it out from its original installation from Starforge. I did notice that screw was also kind of loose, as in turns by hand. So I think we've seen a pattern develop. Unless I see an egregious issue at this point, we're gonna move on from that problem.
Okay.
Oh, that one is a different problem. Hear that? I think Mike knows what that is.
It gets stripped.
Sadness.
I think it got stripped.
A standoff, a motherboard standoff underneath here that is now permanently attached to the screw. So, okay. That was in there, man. That screw was... In fact, it's still in there. These are also on the GN store if you want to grab one of our 10-piece toolkits.
What is that?
You can go to store.gamersnexus.net. Doesn't look cross-thread. I think they just torqued it too much on that one. Okay, so it is not only loose screw.
That's actually very good information. Yeah, no, that's very good information because, like, previously... It's easy to write off if the screws are loose to shipping, but shipping would never make the screws tighter. So the fact that the screws are loose and tight means that there's inconsistency. It means that it's probably not the shipping, at least not entirely.
Not only are a few screws loose, a few screws are a little too tight. That's the case side of things. We'll look at the motherboard really briefly. There's not a lot left to look at. The only reason I look at the CPU is to check if anyone smashed any pins that we didn't detect in our other testing. And it looks clean, so that is good.
Oh, fuck. Oh, God. That was one of the ones that stressed me out, bro. Like, yeah. Oh, boy. What's this?
Man, come on. They have the tape on the SSD, on the thermal pad. That's so basic. It's not making any contact with the SSD. Man, so close. And bam, just like that, the system's magically rebuilt. Amazing. So Starforge has a few key things to work on here. First of all, number one is attention to detail on the small stuff. So that would be things like screw, torque, but the bigger problem is just forgetting that peel on the SSD thermal pad.
I see. I didn't understand immediately. I see now. Yes.
Now, fortunately for Starforge,
will that damage it? Like, it's obviously bad, but like, I'm pretty sure this is problematic. No, it won't. It'll overheat. Okay.
This configuration, they are not using an SSD that's fast enough to get really punished by that mistake. So they kind of skated by. It's still an inexcusable error because it's such a basic thing.
Yeah.
The thing you are paying an SI for is to do it right.
Exactly.
So you don't have to. So if you're recommending for a friend or buying for a family member and you don't want to be support, you don't want to have to get anxiety over whether they
You will be. Trust me. If you have an older family member that asks you to buy a PC for them, you are now responsible for anything that goes wrong with that PC.
built it properly. That's kind of their job.
That's just how it is.
They're very fortunate in that it doesn't torpedo the system because, again, the drive's just not good enough for it to really have a heavy impact. On the positive side, the kale management is excellent. It's immaculate. They did really well there, and it's among the best kale management we've seen from a pre-build, other than maybe Origin with that really complicated build. And they are most of the way there to capturing all of the major elements of building a system properly. Which, again, it sounds almost sarcastic, but that is genuinely our job during these pre-built reviews, is to make sure they're doing the basics. That's all these SIs need to do, is to nail it so you don't need to worry about it. So overall, they've done well. No major mistakes outside of the sticker peel, and the loose screws could have been a major mistake, but in this instance, again, they escaped by. It wasn't. But overall, it's pretty good. One final aspect is...
Overall, it's pretty good. Okay, thank fucking God. Oh, my God, bro. Like, all right. All right, we're good. Yep. The cable guy... Yeah, no, the cabling that we have is like... I'm very happy with it. I'll tell you that.
The thermals of SSD, we ran 2 tests, one with the tape on as shipped, and one with the thermal pad properly contacting the SSD. In this test, the steady state temperature ends up being the same since this drive is limited on how hot it gets, just because it's not that fast of a drive. It doesn't get that crazy hot. Ultimately, the peel is just a barrier, but it's not a huge one. That means the reaction time is affected, not the steady state performance. The time to steady state was 350 seconds with the wrapper covering the thermal pad, or 385 with it removed. That's an extra 35 seconds of time before we were at steady state when properly connected. This isn't catastrophic, it doesn't ruin the build, but it's an error that affects the thermal performance.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. Let me look at that again. This pre-built benchmark, surface horizon, temperature reasons versus wrapper. Okay, it's a big no. Yeah, I mean,
Performance. Our first testing for the system will start in our newly constructed hemi-anechoic sound chamber. The Starforge system has a relatively slow ramp where the hysteresis that's pre-configured, which responds to thermals, is a lot slower than we see in some of the other pre-builds that we've reviewed. So that's what we're going to be looking at first in this chamber, which we have a whole separate video on if you're interested.
Oh, it's one of those. Yeah, I know what it is. Okay. Now, 35 seconds can be a whole generation difference. Yeah, no, 35 seconds. I mean, like, what are we going to spend a lot of time talking about, like, whether the tape should have been there or not? Everybody knows it shouldn't have been there. And so, yeah, I mean, is it something that breaks the PC? No. Is it something that makes it a bit worse? Yes.
And it is very quiet in here. For this testing, we did this at 1 meter distance, which is part of an ISO standard. And after all that's set up, we go through, turn on the test apparatus, turn on the systems out there, and run the data logging. So that's the test setup. Now, as for the chamber itself, these are metal wedges. They're perforated metal wedges. Inside of them is effectively fiberglass. And this allows us to kill a lot of the echo in the room, hence the name anechoic. So the anechoic part of the hemi-anechoic name comes from basically the walls and from the ceiling construction, where we have these wedges to help kill some of that noise. So when I'm talking, my voice is really only making one pass to the walls, gets captured, the sound waves get destroyed or scattered, and we're not really getting much return. And that's especially true in the higher frequency ranges you'll see in a computer. Now, higher here being relative. Now, the hemi part of hemi-anechoic, that comes from the floor.
Holy shit.
So the floor is a hardened surface. This is basically a vinyl tile. As for other features of the chamber, it's built on 3 Hz isolating springs, and that allows us to just further isolate it from the ground and from noises from the outside of the building. On top of the chamber, we have insulation stacked to further reduce external noise, and surrounding it, we use special Armstrong ceiling tiles for the same purpose. The chamber also utilizes 8-foot silencers on either side in the event we run air handles.
Bro, what the fuck is this? This is insane.
And for our single point of noise ingress, we use 2 heavy gauge steel doors that nest and are packed with insulation, including more wedges on the backside. Between the instrumentation, the external room, and the measurement equipment, and the construction, and the complicated chamber itself, we spent about $250,000 on this testing equipment and have been thrilled with the results so far, and we're really only just getting started. Here's the first chart. This is simply for noise levels over time. This system ran at 22.4 dBA at the start when idle, so we'd classify that as quiet for household usage. The fan ramp took place over a period of about the entire 30-minute cycle, but mostly stabilized at around the 10 to 15-minute mark. You can see that the total noise level when left fully auto ran at about 31 dBA. This is completely acceptable, and what we're looking for here really is fan ramp and deramp, which can become annoying as it oscillates, and that doesn't happen with this system. Instead, it's a gradual gain with a slowed start in the first 5 minutes. Now we're going to move to frequency spectrum analysis.
Oh, thank God. All right, we're good. That's an easy. Yeah, it is. There we go.
First with the computer, and then with the streamers. The x-axis is for frequency in hertz. Generally speaking, humans are most sensitive to the 2,000 to 5,000 hertz frequency range, so it's important that this range is under control. Humans are less sensitive to lower frequencies as we're more accustomed to these ranges for speech, which typically ranges from 85 hertz to about 255 hertz for adults. Here's the full chart. At steady state load under peak thermal stress, Starforge's fan profile has the highest range between 200 hertz and about 1,400 hertz for noise. Fall off around the sensitive range means that we end up with what is mostly a lower frequency hum that you might define as white noise. Starforge avoided using any components that produce an audible or an obnoxious whine. We ran the voices of several of Starforge's streamer owners at OTK through our acoustics analysis suite. Using what you all learned in the previous plot, we can now understand who has the most scientifically acceptable vocal frequency. This included streamers like Jay Schlatt, Amaru, Moist Critical, and Asmongold.
Are you kidding?
Does this look right to you?
Okay, Jesus. Are you fucking kidding me?
Asmongold.
We then sampled representative audio for how each of these streamers normally talks. Jay Schlatt recently released a cover of My Way by Frank Sinatra to combat AI voice covers. So naturally, we used that to process his voice. So we used AI to reprocess it all and clean up the audio. We accounted for attenuation, bandpass filtration, diffraction, dispersion, and free air resonance. We also accounted for the fluid pressure dynamics and specifically used the Cartesian coordinate system with a bilateral time cube. And all of this is masked against the cardinal coordinate system. And that produced this chart. We'll plot Asmongold first, as he appears to be the ruler, and we want to show respect for their hierarchy. The average power in his frequency plot was heavier in the 140 to 180 hertz range, with relatively strong power near 100 hertz. Next, Moist Penguin appears to have more power in the 100 to 140 hertz range overall, perhaps causing a power struggle among leadership. Plotting Emaru's voice required some boosting because we saw a total drop in vocal power, and this was particularly true in the lower frequency range. Finally, Schlatt's rendition of Sinatra earned him the most power in the entire lower band of human speech. Now back to the
fucking Schlatt.
What were we reviewing again?
Of course.
The computer.
Overall, Starforge has done well to select components and put them at fan speeds, whether that's configured by the board or by them, in a way that it's not annoying. So that's good. In here, we're going to be looking
Imagine if they did Tectone.
at thermals for a full system torture workload. That's CPU and GPU at the same time. And the reason for that is simply because if the pre-built can survive a full system torture for both of those, then it'll be fine for just about any scenario. In this test, the average all-core temperature was about 67 degrees Celsius and an ambient of about 21 C throughout the test. Averaging only the hotter P-cores, we saw around 71 to 72 degrees Celsius during the course of testing. These numbers are all completely acceptable and well within spec. It's really that liquid cooler that's doing this.
I mean, I've got a pretty fucked up frame of reference for this because I remember my graphics card, I had was it the AMD Radeon 4650, I think, was my first graphics card I ever made. Or I ever bought. And I remember that shit used to run at like 105, and it would turn itself off. It got so bad, it would turn itself off.
Let's zoom in momentarily. This helps us show hysteresis. We already looked at this in the DBA SPL chart, but this one gives us a look at it as it manifests thermally. The temperature ramps from baseline idle of about 30 C to steady state load in about 400 seconds. As we said before, that's a relatively long ramp, and there's another 200 to 400 seconds in there for small fluctuations. GPU temperature averaged about 68 degrees at steady state, which is completely acceptable given the noise levels we measured. The plunge around 510 seconds is a momentary loss of sensing that can be ignored. And the memory junction temperature held about 64 degrees steady state. There's a ton of thermal headroom here for the GPU memory, so they're doing fine.
Great.
The hotspot temperature was about 82 degrees. That's on the bad side for the junction to average delta. It's still fine. It's just there's a lot more room to do better here. And
I think 90 to 95, that's whenever you start running into problems. And I've heard some people run their shit at like 100.
Comes down to the board partner. So based on these thermal numbers, Starforge is actually doing pretty well. The one place we think they could improve is acoustically. They have a ton of headroom thermally to bring the fan speed down. So that's the trade-off. You can run the fans higher RPM, louder, maybe more annoying, with a lot lower thermals. Or obviously go the other direction and overheat, like a lot of the pre-builds we've reviewed in the past, by running the fans too quiet. In this case, they're sort of in the middle, but they're definitely a little on the louder than necessary side. So if we had any advice for Starforge to take back and work on, it would be maybe doing some more custom tuning of that fan curve. Because they could definitely run this quieter and not really sacrifice that much thermally. But overall, they've done well thermally and actually acoustically. So that's nice to see. Let's look at power testing. So for power testing, the reason we run this for pre-built specifically is because we need to know that they're speccing the right power supply for the job. So you want some headroom there.
Big W.
General rule of thumb, a lot of people do 50-60%, tends to be about the peak operating efficiency of a power supply, and will also allow you the most times where the fan is not spinning during the course of use. So we used a login power meter, and we monitored the power consumption throughout the entirety of our full system load process and a couple of other tests to represent gaming scenarios. This chart shows total system power, so we're not isolating for EPS 12 volt or PCIe cables like we recently did in our Intel problem with efficiency video. And if you haven't seen it, you should check it out. There's some really cool data in there. But this is because it's not comparative. For this test, we really just care about the total system power draw. In our testing, a full system torture load had the power consumption of the Starforge PC at 431 watts. Idle is difficult to measure due to observer effect and impact of measurement tools or interaction with Windows background processes, but at the wall, it's easier. And when idle, it ranged from about 80 to 110 watts. This will change based on the monitors that are connected in some instances and based on background tasks. A CPU-only load ran at about 246 watts, with GPU-only system load at 260 watts. Overall, considering we were at 430 watts in a worst-case scenario, an 800 to 850 watt power supply is more than sufficient here. It allows plenty of...
Yeah, 850. Like I like the one I got last time was like 1,000. I just got 1,000 because I just thought bigger was better. But yeah, 850 for this. Yeah, that's totally fine.
Headroom, especially because you can technically go over power on that as well. Now we get into the system setup section. We'll start with Starforge's BIOS configuration. Out of the box, the BIOS version
that's a fucking W. I'm just glad that its power supply was good. I'm happy. That's good.
The E7 E07IMS.A73 from September. As far as being up to date goes, this is really good. We've had a lot of SIs ship us boards with BIOSes that are many months out of date. The worst we had was over a year out of date, and that can affect stability, it affects microcode updates, it affects the security.
The reason why is I'm not really sure where he got it from, but there's a lot of people that source their materials from places that are, like they're buying them wholesale from another type of seller, and the quality of the product might be a little bit lower, but it's a lot cheaper. Whereas like with us, we don't really do that, and a lot of the things that we buy are like the things that are on the market for actual users. And so it would make sense that theirs would be lower because they're buying at a higher stock and they're using it over a period of months, whereas for us, we're buying it on a regular basis. So that's probably why that would happen. They're
Of the
sit longer.
platform.
Yeah, basically.
So this is important, and it's good that they're doing it right. We also noticed that XMP was enabled, which configures the RAM to its DDR5 6000 profile. That's excellent, as again, a lot of SIs fail to enable XMP or Expo and effectively falsely advertise their configurations as a result. StarForge did this part right, and it shows more awareness and competence regarding enthusiast configurations. The only other meaningful change was to the fan curve in BIOS, where StarForge, or if they're using default MSI, but it becomes StarForge's responsibility, sets the back fan and the front 3 fans to 7.2 volts, which has them about 600 to 700 RPM. It's not a particularly useful speed. It's fine. Thermally, they were okay, as we saw earlier. It looks like they tried to configure these slower so that they rely more on the liquid cooler. Booting takes us straight to Windows, where it provides finalization steps. There's nothing special there, so we didn't record it. The desktop comes with almost nothing pre-installed. SIs are supposed to be better than OEMs like HP, and one of the main ways is avoiding bloatware. We've done videos on bloatware in the past. Avoiding things like
like how many of you guys, like back in the day, I bought like an HP PC, and it's like it comes with like 3 viruses already installed. It's like the tutorial for the PC is uninstalling all of those things.
Virus software that, at this point, behave more like that which they were meant to destroy.
Bro, fucking McAfee. You buy a new computer and McAfee is on it? Who the fuck asked for that?
It is a good thing, and StarForge has avoided them. OEMs often get kickbacks from bloated software pre-installed, which is why you see so much of it.
Yeah, listen to that again.
OEMs often get kickbacks from bloated software pre-installed, which is why you see
that's it.
So much of it, and it's good that StarForge hasn't succumbed to that temptation. There's one annoying piece of software that pops up on internet connection, and that's MSI's driver utility rootkit and waiting, which acts sort of like Armory Crate. It allows the user to opt out, though, so we did that, and it never bothered us again. Time for packaging. The StarForge system shipped in 2 boxes. There's an outer cardboard box with 1 strip of bubble wrap on all sides, forming a relatively tightly packed configuration, and then an interior cardboard box. The interior box is just the case box, which itself uses 2 blocks of styrofoam from the case factory. Shipping GPUs has a major risk with pre-builts, as we saw in one of our iWebPower pre-built reviews. SIs tend to either use Instapack, or they just ship it in a separate box. Instapack employs an expanding foam inside of a pouch. StarForge used 3 of these Instapack blocks on the system. One was wrapped tightly around the GPU. Another was around the CPU cooler in a way that butted up against.
One other good thing about this is it allows us to ship something like, really, like, I mean, you guys need to understand, like a 4090, it's like the size of this. It's probably a little bit smaller, to be fair, but it's really, really big. And because of that, whenever it's getting shipped around, if you have something like this and it's like bouncing like this a little bit, it could be really bad. It's bigger? Is it bigger? Holy shit, I think that you're right. It's definitely thicker. Yeah, it's fucking massive, okay? That's the point, is it's absolutely fucking massive. And in the process of that, or, you know, because of that, we want to be able to ship. There are some people, and they'll ship some components like that separately, and then the user will have to install it. I'm not sure if that's still common, but I remember it used to be because of not having the technology of doing packing like this. But that's why we do it. It's so we can ship with all of these things in place, so the user doesn't have to deal with that.
And the final was in the front of the system, which, just for good measure, would also help secure the GPU. As far as packaging goes, this is heavy use of Instapack for an SI. That's a good thing. It stops the radiator from getting jolted
Which,
out.
again, like the reason why we do this is that it does cost more money to do this, but it also saves us money. Because for every one of these that we do, this is like maybe $2 or $4 or something like that. Like, I don't know how much money it is, but you think about how many times that we would have to have a $4 charge in order to equal 1 return. Because like a return, because like you think about a return is the customer dissatisfaction, which is like, that's how do you put a value on that? But let's assume that's like $40, okay? And then so you have $40 out of that, or $20. Let's make it cheap, $20. Then you have the shipping. Then you have us paying the person to look at it. Then you have us shipping a secondary PC. Then you have the person, the review, right? That also matters. So you look at all of this money that comes together, and you're talking about like, this is like a $500 mistake. This could be a $400 mistake. So a $400 mistake, will this happen every 1 in 100 PCs? Well, with a really big graphics card like that, I bet it might. So that's why it actually saves money for us to do it in this way, is because it reduces the amount of people that return things. Unsatisfied customer could cost thousands. And you're right? Because like, let's say they do get the new PC and we do fix the problem, but because they had this issue, next time they don't buy our PC, they buy somebody else's PC. Okay, well now this problem just cost us $2,000 to $4,000. That's it. Need return customers. Yep, it's the 80-20 rule. And so that's why we do the packaging like this.
The top, if there's a hard drop, and it should secure the GPU, which it did for ours.
Yeah.
There's also a piece of foam insert between the glass and the Instapacks, which should help further buffer the glass against breaks. We didn't have any damaged components. However, we did have a scuffed panel on the case where it had clearly been scratched or had some paint wear at the bottom. We saw and complained about similar in our $6,000 Origin PC, and we've seen this over the years. We also noticed that the rear metal side panel wasn't all the way screwed in out of the box. But for shipping damage, it didn't appear that...
Really got to figure out this screw situation, man. We've really got to figure out this fucking screw situation. We gotta get this down. We gotta get like new screwdrivers or something, man.
Our system had any from transit. Yeah. As a note, our system was shipped twice. Once from Starforge to our secret agent in another state using a fast shipping option, and then again to us. So it went through more handoffs than the average order would.
Sure.
That doesn't mean it can't get damaged in transit, and clearly that does happen, but ours did not encounter these issues. For accessories inside...
Yeah, it's very hard to say whether it was like, at the end of the day, it's not about trying to blame shipping for it or not. It's about how do we prevent this from happening as much as possible. Like, that's it, because he's right. It could absolutely come from shipping, 100%. It could also come from user error, builder error, right? Human error. That's just what happens. So yeah, I think that definitely there's something that could happen. Maybe some of it's from shipping, maybe some of it's not. It could be 50-50. It could be 100-0. I don't think it's completely shipping, though. There's definitely things that we can improve on.
The box was an extra set of power supply cables, the leftover ones, which is great because it's a modular power supply. You can make use of it in the future.
Yeah.
So better that they give them to you. There was also a Starforge accessories pack, which included a Wi-Fi antenna, a 16-gauge power cable, a metallic sticker pack, and a 5-step installation instructional card with a QR code for a manual. Starforge does not include any peripherals with this. We count that as a plus. System integrators normally include $0 e-waste tier peripherals, and we'd rather be responsible for sourcing our own than basically tossing trash immediately in the garbage after opening a computer. Wrapping it up, overall, it's pretty good. We're going to grade this kind of like a
All right, here we go. It's pretty good. Okay. All right.
Performance review or something. So thermally and acoustically, the system met expectations. It did not exceed them. It did fine, which is really about as good as it gets for a pre-built.
Right.
For small features like the kill combs, they exceeded our expectations.
Great.
For overall attention to detail, we would say that the Starforge system failed to meet our expectations. That would be things like the SSD peel still being on the thermal pad.
Yeah, for sure.
And like the screws being
for
loose.
Sure.
So that's what judges that aspect, where it could become a short circuit, which is going to be a problem for them. BIOS was nearly perfect for a pre-built, so that was excellent. The fan curve is a place for improvement. It wasn't bad, but it's underutilized, and they could tune it for acoustics if they cared to. The Starforge PC does remain one of the better assembled that we've reviewed. It passed thermal acoustic tests, BIOS, and software setups, and it didn't have bloatware. I'm actually happy enough with this one that I'm going to give it to someone once we're done with it, which is rare, because I don't want to become tech support. So yeah, it speaks to it a little bit that I think I'm going to hand this off and probably it won't cause any problems for me, which is a good thing. Overall, This is well built. Its failings were far less severe than we've seen in many other pre-builds. Using prices as of December 23rd, the price breakdown for an exact like-for-like build against their current iteration of the Horizon 2 Ultra has the cost to build at around $1,400 before factoring in the custom cable extensions and some really small extras. If we're generous, let's call it $100 for random accessories like cable combs, extra fans, LEDs, and extensions. And this is ignoring that you'd probably use a cheaper tower cooler instead of going DIY. So, like for like, their markup's about $450 plus or minus $100 on a similar system as you might make. As long as they're reliable, that's fine. You're paying for warranty and support consolidation, competent assembly if they can fix some of these issues. And it being done right. So
we offer quite a bit of a warranty. And I think that's really the main thing that, like, for example, like my dad, you know, as I said, I was talking about at the beginning of the video, like my car. My dad really wants me to buy a brand new car because the brand new car has a warranty. I'm not sure that I'm going to do that. I kind of don't want to do that because it's a lot of money. But it's like, that's kind of like my perspective with it is that making sure that, like, giving people peace of mind, I think, is the most important thing whenever you're buying an electronic, especially like a PC. Because, like, I think that you have a few things that are, like, really, really important that you want to make sure always work. Your refrigerator, your car, your computer, and your phone. Is there anything else? Toilet? Yep, definitely. Probably a toilet as well. Your internet? Your air conditioning. Yes, the air conditioning. That's another really great example. Yes. And so, yeah. And those are things that, like, we try to provide as good of service as possible, because no matter what happens, there will always be, like, something gets dropped in shipping. Somebody makes a mistake in building. The user drops it. Something happens, right? And we want to make sure that, obviously, whenever people send a PC back or they need to have some sort of, like, support for it, we're able to do that. So, like, yeah, that's I think probably, like, that's one of the big values of buying a pre-built PC.
Don't have to do it. We've seen less markup on iPower and CyberPower. We've seen a lot more markup on Origin and main gear. So Starforge lands somewhere in the middle of the SIs.
Okay, great.
We reviewed.
There it is.
The computer itself, you've got all the details. They almost nailed it. I mean, if that
screws,
peel had been removed,
the screws,
which that just starts to cause process concerns. We're like, okay, what other stuff might they miss if they don't have the right process control in place? But with that peel having been removed, it would have been pretty close to a perfect grade from us.
Fuck, man, that's
so.
I'm happy.
It's fine, and then
oh my god,
yeah, overall the price is kind of middle. Little higher markup, but it's not terrible out of the other pre-builds.
I'm happy.
So for this one, thanks for watching. As always, subscribe for more. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to support us directly, and we'll see you all next time.
There it fucking is. God damn, bro. Oh, God. I was so stressed watching that. Oh, my God. Like, this was nuts, this room they have here. I'll link you guys the video. Like, obviously, you know, Gamers Nexus, Steve, and all of them, like, they're very, very well respected. We take the feedback very seriously, and we really appreciate them, you know, giving it to us as well. Like, this is something that, obviously, for any sort of a PC company, you know, there's a lot of really big companies that pay accounting firms to audit them, so the IRS doesn't have to. And I feel like we kind of just got that for free. And so, really big positive for us, and this is definitely good to know. Should be loose screws? Yeah. And you get to have a solid review? Yeah, absolutely. The screw guy? No, we'll figure that out. I'm not really sure exactly how we'll address that. I need to fully understand how that situation is arrived at before I can say, like, okay, this is how we should do it, right? But either way, yeah, I'm happy it worked. The BIOS was good. Overall was positive. The guy said he'd get it for somebody, and I think I'm very happy, right? That's it. Check YouTube comments is a really good suggestion. Also, our background, really glad to see our teaching survivors find this avenue under Starforge to keep working on what they're passionate about. Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, a lot of the guys that work at Starforge, right? At least some of the leadership, right? They worked at Artesian beforehand, and so yeah. I mean, I think it was just a best case scenario. On Computer Tradition, we'll do a review if you send me a PC. Well, we might have to, right? So you say that's well done after hearing a lot of lockpicking lawyers say this is a lock I would use. Yeah, this is. I'm very happy to see that, man. I really am. See if I don't want to become tech support. Exactly. Streamer voice analysis and the sarcasm related to his top tier. Yeah. Tip for Starforge assembly line: you need an electric screwdriver that torques to 5 millimeters. Once the torque value, then it stops. Yeah, I mean, I will look into that tonight. I don't know if that's the solution, by the way. I don't know. But what I do know is that there should be some sort of resolution, whether that's buying these or not. Because, like, I'm assuming that you'd, if you bought one of these, it is, yeah, if it is, then that's it, right? Because I bet an electric screwdriver is, what, $80 at the most? So if we have, let's say 10 screwdrivers, let's say 20 screwdrivers, $1,600. Is $1,600 worth solving this potentially problem? Like, how many returns would we have to have in order for $1,600 be met? It's a very easy decision, right? It's like everybody sees this. And so, yeah, no, this will absolutely be addressed one way or another. Yeah, it's not even a question. I'll link you guys to the video again. Yeah, I really appreciate them doing the review. And I'm just so glad that it, you know, there were no like other critical issues or anything like that. It's, you know, always stressful watching something like this because you never know what it's going to be. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. The screw issue happens even in some operations. It's not about the torque of the screwdriver. It's more about manual verification of them after the implant is fixed. That's a good point. You bring up a good point. Now, I bet you're right. That, like, yeah, I bet. So what he's saying, no. What he's saying is that the torque screwdriver will solve, like, is this what you're saying? The torque screwdriver will solve 80% of the problem, but the other 20% is going to have to become, this is going to have to come from the actual user and the builder making sure that it happened, right? Like that's what you're saying, effectively? You still have to check. Yes. It's not like what I'm saying. It's kind of like the AI thing, right? Where you don't use AI and AI just solves the problem. You use things that are informed by AI, right? You use AI to kind of like figure out the majority of it, and then you put the finishing touches on it and make sure that it works. I think it's the same thing with this, like in an abstract sense. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Also, I'm a person do a job and person B double check. Yeah. Random control process can also be QA measured to catch these issues. Yeah, I think that you're right about that too. You absolutely are. But yeah, there it is. Watch the fucking review. Oh my god. Wow. Get guys better screwdrivers? Yep. Definitely. Customer could think if they can't even deal with screws, what else do they do wrong and just return to PCs? I don't worry about that as much as, like, it's exactly what I said, right? If somebody hears rattling in the PC, they're going to assume that something's wrong with it. Because, to be fair, it is. So if they see that, even if this isn't going to break the PC, it's not going to break the PC. Let's assume that it's just purely cosmetic sound and they hear it one day and they never hear it again. This will still cause them to think to themselves, maybe I should send this back to them. And if they do that, the amount of money that costs us, like, throughout the entire process, it's just simply not worth it not to have the quality control. Once you do the math, once you figure it out. Why box makes sound? Exactly. Yeah, it's like whenever you hear a problem with your car, you don't open up your engine and probably fix it with a lot of you guys. You just take it down to the mechanic. It's doing it, and that's it. When I send it back, they'll probably forget the padding and something breaks. You never know, right? I mean, that's the thing. Something can always happen. Yeah, that's actually a very good point. So you're saying that they could send it back to us and then they don't package it as the same way that we packaged it, and then it gets damaged on the way back, and then that's a great fucking point. Fucking exactly. There it is. I never even thought of that.